How did you process the fact that, hey, I could be the guy that this team is going to bank on to turn the franchise's fortunes around?
I mean, as a kid, that's what you dream of, going to an organization and being that guy, turning the program around, an organization around, and, winning Super Bowls. And, like I said, I don't shy away from hard work. I feel like, I'm not here to lose games or go through the motions. I'm here to change things up. So I'm ready to go, and I can't wait.
That's Kyler Murray, number 1 overall pick in the draft, and we hope he is great. I am a huge Kyler Murray fan. He was phenomenal at Oklahoma, even as he was shredding my West Virginia Mountaineers on the Friday after Thanksgiving. But he is special, and I like the fact that he is the next in this line of short quarterbacks that can quite possibly get it done at the NFL level, Chris. But the biggest change, obviously, for the Cardinals, a team that was the worst in the NFL last year from a standing standpoint, earned the first overall pick in the draft. What do we think big picture of what they've done to try to turn the page on last year's disaster?
Yeah, I mean, big picture, I think it's been a pretty good offseason by Steve Keim and company. I really do. I mean, when you look at free agency, you go, okay, they addressed a lot of different positions. Middle linebacker getting, Jordan Hicks, Marcus Gilbert at tackle, adding some depth to the secondary with guys like Tremaine Brock. Adding depth on O-line with J.R. Sweezy. You get some veteran leadership, like a Terrell Suggs in the building, right? Also, take a chance on a Kevin White, who used to be a top 10 pick, wide receiver, who went to West Virginia. You know all about him. And when he was at West Virginia, Kliff Kingsbury was at Texas Tech watching him, playing against him. So there's some improvements there on free agency with Darius Philon as well to help the defensive line. And then, Mike, I thought really the draft was phenomenal by the Arizona Cardinals. Not only Kyler Murray at 1, but the corner Byron Murphy at the top of the second round, one of the best nickel corners in the draft this year, getting really Wes Welker / Julian Edelman 2.0 and Andy Isabella in the end of round 2, I think is going to be huge for this team. Getting a Hakeem Butler, a giant wide receiver, 50-50 type ball guy, Zach Allen. They had a good draft is what I'm trying to say. I just thought it was a really good offseason by Steve Keim. They needed it because there's so many positions on that team that needed to be filled, or at least needed to have better depth or better quality depth altogether.
I think what happens when a team makes some big high-profile moves that draw a lot of attention, scrutiny, criticism, etc., from hiring Kliff Kingsbury as the surprise head coach of the team, to making Kyler Murray the first overall pick, to trading Josh Rosen, the 10th pick from last year, a lot of the other moves don't get noticed. They don't get paid much attention to. And I think quietly the Cardinals rebuilding this roster the way that they want to, the way that they think they need to, as they try to compete in a division that is got to be the toughest for a fourth-place team to navigate right now, because if the 49ers stay healthy, they're going to be good. The Seahawks are the Seahawks. The Rams are the Rams. And the Cardinals need to be something other than what the Cardinals have been the past few years. And, it begins with Kliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, but all these other guys that get less notice, they're going to have a huge say in whether and to what extent this team can be successful.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, hey, the second-round pick from last year to Texas A&M, Christian Kirk, it's going to be some of those guys. Budda Baker from, 2 drafts ago or 3 drafts ago from Washington State. They need some of these young guys that they've drafted to kind of assert themselves on their football team. But the biggest reason, and when you really sit back and, I knew we were going to talk about this last night, you pull up their roster, you look at things they do, one of the big things I go, man, it was a good thing they got Kyler Murray with the number 1 pick. There's just not a lot of difference makers on their roster altogether. And I think really that at the end of the day, that's why they had to get a Kyler Murray, not only for the sexiness of the football team, so the fan base and, the media and all of us will talk about them. Certainly that was great. But they don't have guys, or a lot of guys, that can take over games or take over certain situations. On offense, hey, Larry Fitzgerald, he's getting up there in age. We know that it's coming to an end. A good football player, but he's not taking over anymore. They got David Johnson, but damn, it's hard to take over a game at running back and running the football when there's nothing to scare a team from throwing the football. So Kyler Murray will help really accentuate David Johnson's skills. And on the defensive side of the ball, same thing. Chandler Jones, Patrick Peterson, Yeah, they're there, but we know corners, you can avoid them if you don't want to attack them. And they don't have a lot of difference makers in that front seven either. And that's where, again, I go back to like a guy like Hassan Riddick, who they picked in the top 10 a few years ago in the draft. They got to start coming up the pipeline and showing that they were worthy picks by Steve Keim, and they're going to contribute to this football team.
You mentioned David Johnson. If this team is going to be competitive, he needs to get back to the form that we last saw in 2016. He had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Remember, he's the guy that they settled for when they wanted Amir Abdullah. They were the subjects of the very first All or Nothing series on Amazon. They wanted Amir Abdullah in the draft. They didn't get him. They got David Johnson. He was great his first 2 years. Wrist injury week 1 of 2017, gone for the year. Last year got the big contract right before the season began. He still had 940 rushing yards and 446 receiving, but not the kind of year that he has expected. He wants 1,000 and 1,000 rushing and receiving, and if he does that, if we are talking after week 17 that, hey, David Johnson pulled it off, 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving, that will mean the Cardinals were special in 2019, and Johnson has shown he's got that kind of special skill that would allow him to do that.
Yeah, no, he does, Mike. I mean, he's Le'Veon Bell, right? I mean, he's that type of football player. He can do both. He's special. I think that's really, you're hitting on one of the big question marks, or at least one of the things I want to see take place during this year. Kliff Kingsbury from that air raid offense, right? Mike Leach, throw the ball every down. That's not going to work in the NFL. You're not going to be able to throw the ball 50 times a game and think you're going to win on a weekly basis. Sorry. You're going to have to run it. And that's something I really want to see from Kliff Kingsbury. What kind of run schemes is he going to bring to the table? What's his patience like going to be with the run game? What's his patience going to be there? Because he comes from a school of, just keep throwing it, and we'll throw some wide receiver screens to act like the run game. And you don't want to get David Johnson out of this offense. You want to make him the focal point to what you're saying.
And, it just feels like a bunch of different pieces that need to fall together just the right way, and it's on Kingsbury to make it all come together and make it work offensively and defensively. I mean, if it does, it's not going to be easy. They can be relevant in a very tough NFC West.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.